Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, the Delhi elections are over and they've given a verdict. What a verdict it is. What we need to see is what will be the ramifications of Delhi. Is there a larger message here, say, come in the Bihar, coming elections in Bengal? What is also going to be the political narrative? So to look at the implications of the Delhi verdict, I have joining me on the roundtable Kalikesh Singh Deo from the BJD. We have Mr. KTS Tulsi, Senior Advocate and Rajya Sabha MP, and Pawan Verma, formerly of the JDU. I think he's finally out of the closet. I've been waiting to say this, Pawan. I knew where you were headed. And also this is the non-BJP, non-Congress roundtable. So I think we can hope for some very adult conversation and not that tu-tu meh-meh that BJP Congress gets into. So Pawan, I'll begin with you. You're the man of the moment. Did you see this Delhi event coming clearly, and the message from Delhi that you would say?
No, first of all, I was very clear about what the possible results would be. And I do believe strongly that an election in Delhi, while it is a local election, much like state assembly elections, but because Delhi is the capital of India with people from all parts of the country living here, and merely because it's the nerve center of the country as a whole, an election here, especially when the ruling party has put in its every ounce to defeat the opposition, is an election which is local but which has a larger national message as well.
Right.
Now, what is this larger message? I believe there are three key takeaways. Firstly, I believe that the people's expectations now from politics and political parties is that they be governance centric. In other words, they should be focused on areas which affect the quality of lives of people in a positive way with verifiable deliverables. Secondly, I believe that there is now a new centrist space which shuns extreme ideologies either of the right or the left. And thirdly, I think that people want a government that reaches out and embraces all kinds of people, to use a somewhat political word, inclusive government that shuns divisiveness, violence, abuse, disharmony, endemic instability. Because people want to get on with their lives and not be permanently pitted against each other in a state of instability. Now, these are the three key takeaways, and I believe this sends an important message to the ruling party now, which is that it is the beginning of the end, in my view, if followed upon properly, of the Amit Shah Narendra Modi model of governance thus far seen. And it is also a message to all the states and peoples and the future elections coming up that the BJP electoral machine is not invincible.
Yes.
So that's the way I see the Delhi elections and its repercussions beyond.
In fact, I'm going to talk to you. You promised me a larger conversation on that to make sure the Amit Shah and Narendra Modi machinery is not invincible. So later on that. But would you agree? What are your takeaways from Delhi?
Well, I feel that people's patience really
Was tested.
was tipped over, it overflew their bounds of tolerance. People tolerated demonetization, underwent so much of inconvenience, and then the economy took a hit. GST without preparation launched. Unemployment, where people not able to fill their stomachs. They can't eat the words of the government. They need food. So after this, when CAA came, I think it became more or less a referendum on CAA throughout the country. And just as Delhi is considered to be mini India, because people from all states, they get together over here, and they still have their niche separately. Bengalis, Madrasis, all the others, Udiyas. But the point is that CAA has created uniformly a sense of insecurity amongst poor people particularly. They are living in shanties. From where are they going to prove where their parents were born?
CAA and NRC together
Yes.
as a combo.
That's right. But CAA requires you, if you have seen the questionnaire, the Chief Minister of Kerala termed it as frightening. It's so frightening. People won't be able to approve, and how many people are you going to deport from here? Which country in the world has been able to deport millions of people? Even in Germany they couldn't, Second World War. And at that time they said that the bullet is too expensive for a human being, and therefore they were gassed. But it's not possible, it's humanly impossible for anybody to think that millions of people will be deported and the burden will become less. You can't put the country in a reverse gear. So on this,
That message has come out, huh? Yeah.
the anger has come out now.
And Kalikesh, looking at Delhi in the wake of what happened in Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Haryana also, is the Modi juggernaut, as Pavan says, heading for some breaks, or is it only at the state level?
Well, I think the message is very clear that the way Narendra Modi could pull off a BJP victory, irrespective of who the Chief Minister was or wasn't even appointed before the elections, as he did between 2014 and 2016, that era is over. It's now apparently clear that there's a huge distinction between the way the voter perceives, let's say, Narendra Modi personally and the BJP as a political party and its policies. And all these state election results are basically a referendum against the BJP's policies. However, I would like to also add that even today, as a central national leader, I fear that Mr. Modi still enjoys a lot of credibility. So while the BJP is losing state after state, and I expect it to lose many more states in the elections to come, I fear that unless the opposition has an equivalent or an almost equal opponent to combat him, it will be difficult for the opposition to take on Narendra Modi in the parliament elections.
That is the worry, Pavan, and the fact that there is no single opposition leader to take on Modi. Is there a plan to bring together all the opposition leaders?
Well, I don't know if there's a plan, but I think the only remaining strength of the BJP electorally is the absence of a united opposition that can take the BJP on. And even more importantly, as Kalikesh said, you need in an election another charismatic face as against that of Mr. Narendra Modi, who still enjoys, as I fully agree, a huge popularity at an individual and personal level. Now, where will that leader come from? Will that leader emerge? And what is that space which that leader will occupy? And I mentioned at least 3 criteria to my mind: good governance, centrist, inclusive. If this kind of leader emerges offering a viable alternative on a pan-Indian scale, even if the opposition consists of various components, as indeed the BJP fabric also consists of allies and so on and so forth, I think then you are seeing the possibility of a challenge to the BJP, which it should not dismiss offhand purely on the basis of the results of the last 2 elections. Because people have a mind of their own. If you don't have a job, if the economy is at its lowest rates of growth, if the industrial production is shrinking, if the inflation is at over 7%, if the demand is not there, consumption is not there, if people begin to feel that the BJP is not delivering on the promises on which it came to power, which is Vikas. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Sabka Saath has been thrown out of the window long ago. So the only remaining card which it now has is the possibility of polarization on the basis of religion, which it used in Delhi with a great deal of vitriol and vehemence. But the question before us is, will this card work in perpetuity? Or
will it work in Bihar?
Or will it work in Bihar? That's another question. So I think that this has to be now tested, whether people whose expectations are different from what the BJP hopes, they will respond to like puppets. A bit of polarization and you have a consolidation of the majoritarian vote against the other. Will this continue to happen, or is it now an overplayed card? That is the question that will need to be tested. And of course the emergence of a far more organized opposition with a face, which we don't have at the moment.
Well, that we are waiting to see if there is someone who can get the faces together. We have a friend of yours, Prashant Kishore, who's working on that, I'm told. So I will ask you that later. But what he says, the BJP playbook, majoritarian polarization hasn't worked in Delhi. Is that a good model? You think we can take that to Bihar?
Not only Bihar, there are going to be elections in Assam, and BJP might be wiped out.
Because of
In Assam, what a fiasco it was. 19 lakh people identified, and some of them have served in the armed forces.
correct. Huh?
And 14 lakh out of them are Hindus. So the anger is brewing over there. That is why the CAA had to be rammed into operation to be able to deal with the anger, but they are not able to. I think BJP has now got into the habit of losing elections, and this is going to happen in Assam. It's going to happen in West Bengal. It's going to happen in Bihar. It's going to happen in Tamil Nadu.
Tamil Nadu, yeah.
So therefore, they might, and leaders will emerge. Leaders will, the space will never remain vacant. Somebody or the other will take it over.
We hope. That is. But this.
The hope was that the Congress is the largest national opposition party.
Yes, and
But Congress
somebody would
refuses to
emerge from
revamp
the
and
Congress.
restructure to become a fighting electoral machine to take on the BJP.
That is the problem. The vacuum of the Congress, Kejriwal filled it in Delhi, there's somebody else will fill it in various state levels. But at the national level, and also the way of doing politics, he talked about that Modi playbook. Kejriwal provided us a counter. Is that the right counter?
Look, on a national election, national issues do take precedence. While local issues do have an impact, and if you are a government in the state, obviously then you have that impact on delivery basis. But for a national election with for a national government, delivery is not as important as, let's say, a national issue of national security, which was aptly proven by the BJP government or Mr. Modi during the Balakot issue.
Correct.
And I think if Balakot wouldn't have happened, Mr. Modi or the BJP would have probably been 100 seat shots. I mean, there would be over 50 to 70 seats they lost, or they won by just 2% votes. And this is the definition of what a swing is, right? So, unless you have a machinery at a national level, or a coalition which acts as one unit on a national level, to be able to address delivery issues also, but more importantly address as well as national issues with confidence, with perseverance, that's when you have a strategic counter to the BJP. And that's something which the opposition needs to build up.
So, can the opposition get together on a national platform?
No, I think that
Or did you want first?
circumstances throw up developments. I mean, I have so far would give very poor marks to the opposition in becoming an organized force to take on the BJP. But Priya, I actually question the dichotomy between local and national, which we always claim and which has also been proved right by election results. That local elections are another parameter and national elections are another parameter.
Now,
Of course.
Last time around nahi tha. Ab ho
Of
raha hai.
course, but these things are changing. Things are changing because in local choices, national issues are impacting. And on national choices, local issues are impacting. So, it is not binary anymore, in my view. Local issues are important and ultimately national issues impact people locally. If the economy is tanking, there is discontent over and above the satisfaction over local issues in favor of one party. So I think this aspect also needs to be borne in mind, that these distinctions which gave comfort to the BJP,
Correct.
that continue to win state elections. Nationally we are still no one there to challenge our hegemony.
Huh.
These will be contested because the whole is also the sum of the parts. Ultimately the parts make up a whole. And so if they continue to perform poorly in state elections, somewhere the parts will make up the whole.
Mr. Tulsi, the economy is something that is worrying all of us. Early on we were told that economy is not so important. They had distractions, whether it's national security, Hindutva, whatever. But now, with everybody saying we support 370, we support CA, nobody is taking the government on. Is that a smart way of bringing the focus on the issues that really matter?
Of course. The question is that the future of the country depends on economy. And if economy is going to continue to tank, people are sleeping hungry. By thousands of people every day are getting added to unemployed category. And either they are unemployed or they are underemployed. If the economy is not fixed, doesn't get fixed, then I think BJP is history. There is no way people are going to accept, because CAA is only the immediate provocation which boiled over, but it's very much there. And if economy, you need peace, you need harmony for economy to grow. If you are going to be so polarized and say देश के गद्दारों को गोली मारो, that's not when economy is going to come back on the track. They need to understand that economy can work only in an atmosphere of homogeneity. And BJP, to me it seems that if they are not going to take action against these people who make these and spaces, what kind of a lame excuse is this, that I only clapped and it's the people. He is giving them the rhythm and he is giving them the rhyme. How is he disassociated himself? He is clearly guilty of provoking, of inciting violence. And if the ministers are going to do this with impunity, people are not going to have faith in this government.
Faith, credibility, social narrative, that's I think very important. But also, the Kejriwal, how he countered him, and Bhupinder Hooda did that, Pawar did that. Don't argue on nationalism, don't get into an argument, say we are on them and then take them on issues. Is that a smart way forward?
Look, on the issues of nationalism and on the issues of Hindutva, or so-called Hindutva, or some people's definition of Hindutva, I think the BJP is far ahead of other parties, and those who believe in that kind of political philosophy are going to bite that bullet, and they won't easily trust other parties who try and emulate them in the same manner. I think, as you pointed out earlier, the economy is a fulcrum point for this government. People are angry, people are upset, and these spontaneous eruptions of anti-CAA protests across the country, in places like Baroda, where BJP has a complete control of organizational strength from colleges across the country. I think it smacks of a fear and insecurity amongst the youth. A fact that this youth is seriously now trying to resist being diverted into non-economic issues and polarizing issues as the CAA or the anti-Hindu, anti-Muslim protests or direction. The youth ultimately wants a future for themselves, and they're going to look for jobs, which isn't there anymore. The budget, it doesn't matter what other people say, I think this budget has been one of the most disappointing budgets as far as I'm concerned. They've highly inflated the revenues, expected revenues. They're going to have to cut it back. Highly inflated disinvestment figures, largely a large part of which will be fulfilled by one government PSU buying another government PSU, and they're going to fall short of tax collections. And ultimately the so-called increased capital expenditure is going to fall way short. It's going to be largely pronouncements and very little action on the ground. So I think it's a very worrying time for the Indian economy. It's a very worrying time for the Indian youth, and I sincerely hope the Indian youth understand this and work accordingly.
Vote accordingly, you mean?
I said work. I said work.
But explain to me one thing, Pawan. And Arvind Kejriwal goes to the Hanuman temple. He gets more credibility than Rahul Gandhi ने भी तो यही किया था, जनेऊ पहना था, मंदिर गया था, शिव मंदिर. Why is one more credible?
I'll tell you, there are two very interesting things happening. You see, there was an assumed monopoly the BJP had over two things. One is appropriate patriotism. They judged you on whether you are patriotic enough or not. And the other was a monopoly over their definition of Hinduism/Hindutva. Now, interesting things are happening in these areas which have a portent for the future. The protesters, the CAA protesters, especially the young, they have reappropriated patriotism in a higher degree with greater credibility and impact than the BJP. They are enthusiastically waving the tricolour. They are singing with gusto the national anthem. They are holding in their hands a copy of the Constitution of India.
Yes.
They are reading in candlelight the preamble to the Constitution. They have appropriated the icons of the freedom movement, Ambedkar and Gandhi and others. So, in a sense, patriotism now of the brittle nature and exclusionist nature that the BJP was using has been taken over by a large section of the youth who are saying we are और हमें ऐसी patriotism से आज़ादी चाहिए. This is real patriotism. Similarly with Hinduism. Now you see, essentially in India, by our civilizational legacy, there is no contradiction between personal faith and respect for all faiths. For BJP, it has been that your personal faith means in some manner, through one of your spokesmen or the other, or by your inherent ideology or worldview, you devalue or demean another religion. Now, what did Mr. Kejriwal do? He went to the temple because he is a Hindu. I am a proud Hindu and an Indian, but a proud Hindu. I have books on Adi Shankaracharya, Krishna. My next book is on Lord Ram. So you can be a proud Hindu and yet have the conviction that you want social harmony and peace by respecting all faiths. There is no contradiction between the two. Why did he succeed when Mr. Rahul Gandhi may have not succeeded as much? Because in Mr. Kejriwal's case, this assertion of his Hindu identity under the larger Indian identity was also backed by verifiable good governance. And he said, काम की राजनीति की अब एक नई शुरुआत देश भर में होने वाली है. So in other words, there was good governance and there was also, like in the case of Mahatma Gandhi, he was not an agnostic like Jawaharlal Nehru. He was deeply religious. After all, when he sang Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram Patita Pavan Sita Ram, he was asserting first his identity as a Hindu, Ram. And then he said, Ishwar Allah Tero Naam Sabko Sanmati De Bhagwan. So between personal faith and respect for all faiths, there is no contradiction. That is what our whole civilization is about. So both Hinduism and patriotism at some level now, as the assumed monopoly of the BJP is being challenged, especially by the young.
By the young, but the Congress has not been able to understand this very simple message.
Well, I don't know.
I know you're not a spokesperson of the Congress, but
I can only say that they can bully the industrialist, but they can't then bully production. For that, you have to have a different attitude. You can bully the chairman of banks. There are 26 chairmen or CEOs who are being inquired into, and you can't expect then the banks to function. You see, this continuing to bully, you can bully the police, you can bully various things, but economy can't be bullied. It's too complex an issue, and for that, if the BJP doesn't come up to the mark, I think they will lose the right to rule.
final word from you, Kalikesh.
And I completely agree with Mr. Tulsi. I think while the government has so far managed to get away with a lot of discrepancies in the budget, in social disharmony, diverting attention of the youth into nationalistic, so-called patriotic agendas. I think that phase is over now. And if Mr. Modi and his team don't start performing well on the economy, don't start creating an environment where the economy can function, and stop announcing these major achievements with very little on the ground. I mean, I've been reading somewhere that
Or
almost
be in
56
denial about the economy.
Yeah.
Well, I've read somewhere that almost 56% of the Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao Abhiyan, the money, is spent on publicity. So if that is the kind of work which is going to happen, I fear 2024 is going to be a lost cause for the BJP.
Well, on that note, we'll have to end the show. But thank you for watching this show. We'll see you again same time next week.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.